help if I press it beforehand. Okay, share my screen. All right. Hello. This is the official remake for assignment 1. So we've already compiled everything. We've already linked everything for all the files. So we're just going to type in our output file, which is just going to be chess game. And to move for night, we're going to go with, so starting at position 3, 0, which means you can go up 1 over 2 in left or right. So we're just going to start 1, 1. For rook, here's what I'm going to demonstrate for rook, the inability to go off the board. So it starts at 4, 0. So we're going to do 4. And then I'm going to enter here 10. There isn't a Y for 10, so this can't happen. Invalid move, moves on to pawn. For pawn, since it's at starting position of 5, 0, we're going to enter 5, 2. Allowing to move 2 pieces, 2 spots for that first move. King starts at 6, 0. We're just going to move it up 1, 6, 1. Now this is where it's going to print out all the new moves. So knight has moved to 1, 1, as we saw. Rook has not moved because the move that it tried to make was an invalid move. The pawn's able to move 2 spots here because it's its first move. And the king has moved up 1 because king can do that. Now we're going to go over here. I'm going to move my share screen over to my VS Code. Going through the pieces.h file, I've included iostream and namespace just so that I make sure I don't forget it in later files. This is the knight class. So we have our public and private. Private members are going to be the integers x and y because only the functions can take care of that. So here we have the knight constructor itself. This is setting its starting x and y. It's a 2-parameterized constructor. Then we have our void move function. So the move function is what's actually changing over. It's replacing the value of x and y with a new x and y from the user, as we saw the 1 and 1. And then we have our 2 getters for x and y. We're making sure they are const to make sure that it's not making any copies. It's just changing. It's not making any copies, or else we'd have multiple knights on the board. That's not. Same thing going down for the rook, just changing out with the rook constructor, same exact thing. Then we have our pawn class. Same exact thing as the 2 above, and same with the king class right there. So then when we walk over to pieces.cpp, I did include the C standard library here just to make sure for the ABS. So going here, you have our knight constructor of type knight. This is just setting stx and st start x start y to x and y. Then we have our move function. So this if statement right here is making sure that the new x and the new y is going to be on the board. That's what we saw in the demonstration of the rook, that the x and y, when he went to 10 for y, didn't work. And then this, if ABS for the knight, checking to make sure that the knight is going to be, the knight move is actually valid, and it's only going up 1 over 2 to the side, checking to make sure the new x minus x is 2 and y minus 1 is 1. Absolute value. Making sure so it can go backwards if it wants to. Also left and right. And then for else, this is just, it'll print out if it's not valid. Same thing for that one. This is just the basic getter for x, getter for y. We have a rook function, same thing. This one, same for the board. This one's just checking to make sure. This is just this right here, the second if statement, just making sure that only x is changing or only y is changing. So it can't move diagonally. It can only go up and down or left and right in one move. Doesn't work. It's going to print invalid statement. Getters, the pawn. So the difference is with the pawn move is that, well, if the move is valid, we can check that right away. And then if y equals 0, so if it's in the starting position, then we can check to make sure that it can be greater than 1. It just has to be less than equal to 2. And not ABS here, because remember, the pawn can only go up, so it can't go backwards. So we can't have the ABS, or else you could enter a negative value and still get that. And then if it's not here, then that has to be equal to 1. The y minus y has to be equal to 1. And new y has to be greater than y, because or else you can't go backwards. And then if not, print out invalid move, as we saw in demonstration for the rook. Getters, getters, and then we have the king function, make setting up starting position for the king, coming over here, checking the board, and then this is making sure that for all who wants to go up and down, for up and down, it's the third one over here. If he wants to move side to side, it's the middle check, and if he wants to go diagonally, it's that first case scenario. So as long as once of those is being met, it's good. If it's not, it's an invalid move. We have our two getters. Moving over to our driver file, we have our bool is occupied. So this is what's checking to make sure that these pieces aren't going to collide in the board and land on the same spot. So we have our basic data members, int y, int x, our const, night and night. So this is just making sure it's one piece for each one. And then our int piece is actually our like third party thing that's going to hold and make sure, as you can see, which piece we're dealing with. So for piece equals 1, that's actually our knight down here. So this is checking the rooks, pawns, and the kings x and y. And if the x and y for knight is equal to this, it's going to return false and it's not going to let it move. Same thing here. The only thing for rook is it's checking knight instead of rook. If it is true, returns false. Same thing for pawn, checking knight, rook, and king. For king, it's checking rook, pawn, and knight. If that's not true at all, if that isn't equal to each other, it's going to return true. It's going to allow it to move. So in X, Y, and piece, these are two new moves coming from the user. And piece is the value that's going to check which piece we're working with. This is just making of the board. These are the starting coordinates here, the 3, 4, 5, and 6, the starting coordinates here. These are our two bools to check to make sure that if it's a valid move or not. See out, we're going to enter move, enter. This is piece 1. Make sure we're checking the rook, the knight, and the king. The rook, pawn, and king. Because if it's checking the knight, it's just going to be stuck in a loop of always being equal to itself. It'll always find collision, but just that means colliding with itself. So is valid goes to is occupied. So if this returns true, it'll make is valid true. If is valid is not, if is valid is true, because remember, is valid is false up here. If is valid is true, we're going to do knight move x, y. That's going to make sure it updates its new move, and valid's going to return true. Valid's going to return true. And remember, and then if it's not, it's going to see out invalid move because another piece is already there. Try again. Same thing, we have to redeclare it, or else it'll just say it's automatic, it's true or false, and it won't change. Going down to here, we have piece 2. That's gonna be our rook. It's gonna go back up all the way back to this bool. To check, same exact thing, is valid, rook move if true. Same thing down here with the pawn, just piece equals 3 now, and then same thing down here with the king for piece equals 4. And then down here's where that printing of that, if they're the new moves going to be. So that get X and get Y is where we see that 1, 1, and then all the stuff for the new moves. And then, yeah, so that is the assignment 1. I look forward to hearing feedback on it. I'm going to attach this in the comments of the assignments that you know it's a new one. Okay.